for about 30 years. So what brought me here today was a little bit of a journey, so I'll just give you a little insight to that, and then we'll get going. I started going out west I've been traveling back and forth for quite a while, but I started going out west seriously in the winters about 5 years ago, and started getting, I just noticed it was very different out there because of water issues. And so I had time, because I had the winters off, to sort of start paying attention to more environmental issues, which have always kind of been an interest of mine, but I just had more time to spend researching it. So I started signing petitions, and I started looking at different ways that, I was thinking about conservation and that kind of thing, and it became more and more important to me. And at that time I was also going organic, which I had gained a lot of weight and couldn't figure out why, and started eating organically. And then I started paying attention to pesticides and how our food is grown, and it sort of snowballs from there, because you sign one petition, they'll send you 100 more. And so I kept paying attention to that, and I was starting to be surprised at the things that were coming up, because I had always been sort of one of those people, I don't want to watch the news, it makes me sad or depressed, and the government knows what they're doing, I'm going to let them do their business, I'm going to do my business. But then as I started signing these petitions, I started questioning, why would they allow pesticides in food, and why would they allow a big company to sue organic farmers? And I started really questioning their motives and paying more attention to it, and thinking, all right, well, I should pay attention, because I don't agree with these things. So when I came back home to New Hampshire, I decided to spend a winter here, and was pretty excited about the way that I had started to change, and was feeling really good about reducing my carbon footprint. It was really important to me to make as little impact on the environment as possible. I lost 35 pounds eating organically, and I started feeling so much better. So I knew that there were differences. I mean, it was very apparent. So I was in my shop one day, and all of a sudden, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go play with my dog, because it was like a picture perfect bluebird day. And so I went outside and saw this. And I had never ever seen something like that before, and I was blown away. I was like, what in the world is going on? Because where we live, we have a European flight path, but I have never seen a plane. And the only other planes that we do see are like the ones that fly out of Freiburg, really small ones, and they they just putt around or whatever. So it's a big deal if a plane comes through. And also, every once in a while, the military jets, the fast flying, would maneuver through the mountains and off and gone. So I knew, and I looked over the mountains, and I'm thinking, what is that, And I had this sinking feeling in my stomach. It was like, this just does not feel right. And so I questioned it, and I talked to a friend, and he recommended a video called "What in the World Are They Spraying?" So I thought, all right, I'm going to give it a shot and see, what it's all about. So I did, and it was exactly what I was seeing. It was talking about these planes and the trails coming out and spreading all over the sky, and really, kind of wreaking havoc with the sky. And so I felt horrible about it. I was pretty devastated, actually, and because I knew that something was not right. And as so many people would say, it's a conspiracy theory, it's not true, it's whatever, but I knew that I had never seen this before, and it just was not sitting right with me. So with the help of a couple of really good friends who would drag me out skiing over the winter, in between me crying and crying and crying, we got outside and I would make them look. I would say, but look at that, you know, but they stuck with me, and they were great. So what I did was I stopped working pretty much. I mean, and I just went into research mode. And I was lucky that I can do this. And so for the last 9 months, I've pretty much just been researching this, and I've been filming the skies every single day and watching all these planes coming in. And this is the first myth. Everybody calls them contrails. They say they're just contrails. Well, they're not just contrails. And we had never seen these before. It's like, wait a minute, they haven't always been like this, so why all of a sudden are they just contrails and the contrails are behaving this way? And what I found out is that most of today's jets, the military and the commercial jets, have these high bypass turbo jet engines. And what they do basically is 80% of the air is already conducted through these engines before they ever even hit the outside air. And then, and to further, you know, reduce the possibility of it being water vapor, is that they are, they're not water injected. So that makes it even harder for it to happen. And the other thing is that you have to be above 30,000 feet to get the coldness that you need to make it for a contrail to show. And so I was pretty blown away by that, but that was the facts. And I was thinking, well, you know, I had never seen that. So if anybody's ever flown, when you're in a jet and you're flying at 30,000 feet, you can't see below you. You see clouds. That's what you see. So how can we see a jet at 30,000 feet? So far, I haven't. And so this is the type of plane that we would have, you know, like out of Freiburg that would come. This is the plane that, the type of plane that has been flying around the valley and all over the world. It's happening all over the world. And this is typical. This is what it's supposed to look like. No trails at all. This is exactly what you're supposed to see when you look up in the sky. And that's not what we're seeing. So there's patents, there's tons and tons of patents to explain spraying apparatuses for jets. So it's not like it's this crazy thought. I mean, all you have to do is look them up, they're everywhere. And Boeing is one, and this happens to be one right here for that particular patent. These are two jets that are flying very close together. One has a trail, one does not. So anytime that you see a plane that's emitting trails, it's not a contrail, or it would be so rare to actually see it. And you can go to a airport, watch them, you know, watch them fly. Do they, you know, if they did, if they were doing this in this altitude, we wouldn't be able to see where we were flying to. These are jets. There's 17 consecutive photos. I didn't go into that. I just wanted to show a couple of these jets flying very closely together. One, again, emitting, one not. So there are several videos that show off and on, turning off and on. And the debunkers would like to say that they're hitting an air pocket or they're doing whatever. It's just to, it's basically a lie. And this is another type of jet that has flown over a couple times, you know, with the Ford trails coming out. Here's another example. Now, does that look like something that you've seen all your life or that would seem normal? So this is something that happened over the winter. This is taken in February. These planes would start out on a blue sky day. They would go behind the mountains and they would leave these long, 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 long trails. And this is behind Bear Peak, which is 3,000 feet maybe. So absolutely there should not be a trail, you know, none whatsoever. And then this is at 80 degrees on Easter behind Bear Peak. And as you can see, you know, it's going down and then they would fly straight up. And then you can see also previous flights through where they had spread out already. And actually these clouds here are not real clouds. These are also man-made clouds. Everything in that sky is man-made. So it doesn't matter if it's 80 degrees, if it's 30 degrees or whatever. They also fly in grid patterns. Lots of times they make these grids. And what's the purpose? It's not a flight plan. It's not them crossing over each other. It's so silly for them to even say something like that. But anyways, and then so grids and X's is their other favorite thing to do. And they fly between clouds a lot, and what I observed over the winter is while they're flying between the clouds, I have video of them, but it was a horrible video, so I didn't put it in here, of them. They fly from one cloud into the next cloud, into the next, and then the way that they communicate with these clouds, they pull them together to create full cloud cover. This was left by, and this has happened, I think 3 times now, where you can hear a plane, but you absolutely cannot see anything. Like, you can't see it, and you're like, where is it? Where is it? This is ridiculous. And we're all looking, trying to find the plane, and these trails just sort of start sinking down out of nowhere. It's like the weirdest. And if I didn't have friends with me, then you could all say I was crazy, but you know. So, and where are they going? Circles. These planes also very loud, and they fly back and forth in particular areas. This is out behind my house. This is out into, like, towards the experimental forests and stuff, and that's just straight up and down. And as you can see, the sky is all whited out. I don't know what these guys are doing. Yeah. So this is when they will fly many of them together. Sometimes they have as many as 6 flying together to just do a really fast. No, this is actually in Austria. And because again, it's happening all over the world. And actually, I think Europe gets it way worse than we do. I mean, it's horrific. So this I actually took myself, and I don't have a great camera. And this is a commercial plane, and it's owned by a corporation out of Dubai. And I never, you know, like I said, I never see these commercial flights. This one happened to be flying low. I looked on Flight Radar 24 is what I use. None of these jets come up on that. The European flights do, the little planes do, but these never come up. So I knew, obviously, because it was, emitting vapors, that it was up to no good. And I don't know if people remember, but a few years ago, all the airlines were going broke. They were all like, oh my God, we're going under, what are we gonna do? And so what we just checked into this, because people say, well, there's a lot more flights now. That's another excuse. There's a lot more flights now. Well, it's only up 6%. So, and also what they're doing is they're making the seats smaller, so they're cramming people in, but their profits have gone up to $199.7 billion. So where are they getting these profits from? And in that documentary, What in the World Are They Spraying? They were asked point blank, if you were asked to spray these the aluminum oxide out of your planes, would you do it? And they all said yes. And so it's on record that they actually said yes. So there's 2 aspects of what's going on. One is geoengineering or climate engineering, and then the other is a military application. So I'll go over all of it. But geoengineering or climate engineering is full-scale changing the environment in the atmosphere. And so it's called solar radiation management. And that's what we're going to be going over for the most part. They also have carbon dioxide removal. I have a picture there. This explains it better. So carbon dioxide removal would be, they want to make genetically modified trees to suck the carbon out of the air. And they want to put iron oxides in the ocean to try to revive it back. They have all these crazy schemes to put artificial stuff into the environment rather than curbing emissions or any of that. It's kind of crazy how they would come up with this before they would ask us to reduce emissions. I am boggled by it. They also have this floating apparatus that creates clouds all day long, and Bill Gates is a big supporter of that. And they are working actually out in Europe, in European waters, they're using those. So here we see planes spraying reflective aerosols. It's geoengineering. It's absolutely the way that they do it, you know. So why would we think that this is invented, but that they're not doing it? Even, you know, it's very obvious right there. That's what they're doing, and that's what we are seeing. This is out of a geoengineering manual, and it's called Cloud Seeding and Whitening. They have the X's there. I don't know if any of you have noticed the skies, some of the cumulus clouds, they look really lit up, like super, super white, and they might be mixed in with other ones, but this is also one of their ideas to do this, and that usually comes from the clouds that have salt water that are made to look like cumulus clouds. This is just showing it a little bit closer and how they have them all floating out there making clouds. And supposedly clouds are more reflective, and that's why their idea behind that is to reflect light, the sunlight, back into the atmosphere, and supposedly making it cooler because we're not getting the full sun. But what's happening is that we stay under cloud cover. We're not allowed to lose any of our emissions, so everything's staying trapped on Earth's surface, and we're heating up. So their plan is very backwards. This is just to give you an idea of the layers of the atmosphere. We're in the troposphere. It goes up to 42,000 feet, and most planes, you know, they fly within that 35, you know, or regular flights at full height, 35,000 up to 39,000 I've seen. But the planes that we are seeing are down in the lower troposphere. And then the stratosphere, which is where they talk about, in geoengineering, they talk about spraying these reflective particles. Obviously, they're a little off the mark. And then there's the ozone layer. And then also just take a look at where the ionosphere is, because we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Ken Caldera, he's one of the top mouthpieces for geoengineering. He was just at a 2014 meeting in Berlin, Germany, and there's no governance over any of this. It's just sort of willy-nilly, anybody can do what they want. And he was on record as just throwing a fit because he's like, no, the scientists should be able to say what happens, not the countries. And so he was very angry about that. He also was bragging about, he's on record bragging about how he and a bunch of scientists sat around trying to think of ways to do chemical warfare or atmospheric warfare on civilians, and he thought about making a tsunami, and he said, well, we could just blow it up on land, so why bother do that? But we could put pathogens in clouds, and then we could just send them over a country and get people that way, and they would never know. So military applications are huge here. So there's a clip coming up. It's a video. It's like 4 minutes long, but it just shows sort of mainstream media talking about this. And
you ever look at those planes up there? They have contrails behind them. Maybe all those planes with contrails, maybe they're actually spraying chemicals into the atmosphere right now, and Uncle Sam isn't telling us.
Seems extremely unlikely.
The fact that the United States is not telling something to its citizens, that seems extremely likely to me.
And of course, there are a lot of problems with what they're proposing. It turns out plants need sunlight.
Yes.
Have you gotten some grief for suggesting this?
Sure. I mean, this is like writing a book as the case for leprosy.
Well, first of all, let me ask you this question, because there's a rumor, I don't know if this is true or not, that some scientists are trying to figure out a way to block the sun to try to slow down global warming.
Could an individual start this?
In practice, only a country.
Okay. What about a man in like a hollowed out volcano with henchmen who occasionally shakes his fist at the sky and says, "They said I was a fool at Harvard. Who's the fool now?"
It's All Things Considered from NPR West. I'm Arun Ram. If scientists get the calculations wrong, it could be catastrophic for life on Earth. Or what if the technology got into the wrong hands? Couldn't someone shoot poison into the atmosphere?
So people are terrified about talking about this because they're scared that it will prevent us cutting emissions.
Right, and also that it's sulfuric acid.
It is.
You're bearing the lead. Is there any possible way this can come back to bite us in the ass?
You know, you put another kind of pollution, sulfur dioxide, up to orbit, cover the atmosphere. The sky won't be really blue in the way it is now anymore.
Blanketing the earth in sulfuric acid, because I'm all for it. This is the all chocolate dinner. I still get to have my CO2, and I just need to spray sulfuric acid
Right?
all over the earth.
Right? But we put 50 million tons of sulfuric acid in the air now as pollution, and it kills 1 million people a year worldwide.
Okay, and that's
And so
good or bad?
it's terrible.
But it would be better if we put more in. So if it kills 1 million people, and we're only going to 1% more, we're just killing 10,000 more people.
You could do math. So killing people is not the objective here.
Killing people, not the objective. I just wanted to be clear. I just wanted to be clear.
Because some very mainstream scientists are saying that the climate change situation is so bad that saving life as we know it might require something radical, like shooting chemicals into the stratosphere to reflect sunlight.
This is the kind of stuff I wake up sweating about. Exactly.
Well, it's your goddamn idea.
No, it actually turns out to be an old idea. This was known since President Johnson. And the scientific community mostly decided not to talk about it.
What happens to the sulfuric acid after it's sprayed? Does it just stay up there?
No, it rains down.
Okay.
But as I said, it rains down.
Okay.
It's a tiny addition.
Okay.
And you put, say, 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid into the stratosphere every year, and each year you have to put a little more, and this doesn't, in the long run, mean that you can forget about cutting emissions. We will need to rein it in.
No, we'll get to it eventually.
But it does.
In the meantime, we're shrouding the earth in sulfuric acid.
So is that you could actually spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere, 20 kilometers over our head, and use that to stop the planet warming up. And it ugly tech things.
You could spray something into the atmosphere to change.
Spray pollution into the atmosphere to stop it warming.
So in the end, pollution saves them all. We owe pollution. We owe acid rain an apology, is what you're saying.
A totally imperfect technical fix.
Okay.
It would have risks. It wouldn't get us out of the long run need to stop polluting, but it might actually save people and be useful.
The sky won't be really blue in the way it is now.
So, this is David Keith. He also is a big advocate for geoengineering. He's another mouthpiece, I guess. And he has changed his story many, many times. And this was, I think the video was done in 2007. He has also done a TED Talk, which is pretty horrifying. He talks about bragging pretty much that scientists have made a box that can control the temperature of the world, and imagine the wars that would be fought over that box. And he's proud of it. You know, he thinks it's a great thing that, that they are controlling the weather, controlling temperatures, because when you do that, someone loses, someone wins. And also this great quote, you know, free riding on your grandkids. And he doesn't sort of see a problem with that. In the video, he talked about using 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid. They have since changed that to 20 million tons of nano-sized aluminum, and that seems to be the metal of choice. It's being found everywhere in high quantities, and so he did change his story, and so he always sounds like, oh no, we don't want to do this, but they are doing this, and he's probably quite proud of it. Here are some scientific papers, because some people like to see it written up scientifically or whatever, talking about how these skies would turn whiter, which is what we are seeing now. Our sky, even today, blue sky today, but it's not our blue sky. It's not our typical, beautiful, deep bluebird sky that we all love. However, today was also, for me, I've been keeping track since the day that I found out about this. Today is the very first day since November 29th of 2013 that I haven't seen a cloud in the sky. Very first day. And it's kind of cool to not see it. But also today is the global march against geoengineering. So maybe that's part of it right there. So this is just an example of the skies getting whited out. You know, a small trail like that, and how it turns our skies into these aerosol blobs, and they just keep spraying and spraying until it's completely whited out. So some of the side effects, you know, turning the sky white, it depletes the ozone layer. And these geoengineers are always caught on record going, well, there are, you know, some side effects, but they never talk about it. So in shooting the sun rays back into the atmosphere, it's going back at the ozone. So it's exponentially burning the ozone. You know, it's creating problems, and we're actually getting readings. It goes in a UVA, UVB, UVC. And we like to be in UVA, and UVB should only be 5%. It's up to 70% in California. And they're finding UVC in certain areas, and what that does is plants can't grow, trees, the bark is being burned off trees, and the next layer is X-ray. I mean, there's no other safety protection. So I'm not sure why they feel that using an artificial protection is better than letting the ozone heal and to do things less than, you know, what they're doing. These metals in our soils and waters, they're harmful for everything. We are not intended, you can't grow plants, you can't do any of that kind of stuff. And I was talking about it trapping in the heat. It also disrupts the hydrological cycle, so we have less rainfall, and because particulates in the sky, you need condensation nuclei to make a cloud and to make it rain, but if you have too much of it, then it stops the rain completely. So that's why they say in geoengineering, some of the side effects is drought in some areas, and then floods in others, and continuing on and on. It's like all these different types of horrible weather events like we've been seeing. So that is, you know, and it can disrupt. If it's drought, you can't grow food. So that's disrupting food loss, they say, for billions of people for many years. And it also dries out the atmosphere. And the wildfires out in California, they're not understanding why they're burning hotter and longer. And yes, there is a drought and the trees are suffering horribly from that, but also these metal oxides, some of them are used in controlled burns for the Forest Service. They'll use a metal oxide, but the whole ground is saturated, the leaves are saturated, the trees are saturated. So these trees, they put the fire out, but they're down in the root system, and they literally will start burning underground. It's just that hot and that. And these firemen, you know, because people want to blow this off as some crazy conspiracy, they don't want to hear it. They just shut down. And so it's really hard to reach people to understand what's really going on. So it's kind of... these are weather modification patents, and there's over 150 that are available. There certainly are many more than that, I'm sure. And they date back to the 1920s. And I think that you would, if you can remember David Keats saying that it had been known since President Johnson, and President Kennedy is on record saying that they were ready for weather control, controlling the weather. Here's just one, how to make a cumulus cloud. And there are several cloud patents on different ways to make clouds, which sounds so crazy. This ice nucleating crystal is it's responsible for a lot of things, but when we have temperatures in the 80s and then the next day it's snowing somewhere and we all go, oh, wait 5 minutes, the weather will change. Well, it will. And So this is one of the things that can make that happen. It's almost like pulling out an ice pack out of the fridge that you hit, and all of a sudden it's, you know, it's ice, you know, and you can use it, just sort of relate it to that kind of a thing. So they can put these in the clouds, and mixed with certain things, it can actually drop the temperature 100 degrees. I mean, it has that capability. So they have these 75-pound ice balls in Lake Michigan, and they were still there in June, not melting when it was 80 degrees out. So I don't know about anybody else, but I have never heard of ice balls like that. And to have the hailstones or something come down and have this continue, but not to melt, is unnatural. And it's the same thing as having the polar vortex this winter. Like, how many people have heard of a polar vortex? And now it's coming, and then can it make it, you know, and then it goes again. So these are ways that they are able to do this sort of thing. So weather modification, military control. They started doing weather control a long time ago, but they used it in Vietnam and kept floods happening so that the enemy couldn't come in with supplies. And so they kept a storm going for 30 days and just flooded the entire thing out. And then after that, the countries got together and signed the Edmond Treaty, which is environmental treaty, to say, you know, this is pretty crazy, maybe we shouldn't use this on each other. However, they are allowed to use it in your own country. You can keep doing this testing in your own country. So another reason that it's used is food production. So as a military application, if you can starve the enemy and it's done through weather, how can they prove that you're doing it? The other thing that's huge now is weather derivatives. So someone can insure their crop for $5 million, and then they could actually, you know, if the crop doesn't make it, they're making more money than they would if they actually had the crop happen. So they're sort of placing bets on the weather. And Monsanto just happens to own a weather prediction company that they just purchased for just under $1 billion in cash. This is the World Meteorological Organization talking about how they're not testing anymore, they're just going into full-scale operations. So this is also an application for weather modification. So if some people think cloud seeding, it's very benign, it's very simple, you know, what's it gonna hurt? But when you take somebody's cloud and use it for yourself and you seed it, then the people down the road aren't going to get the water. So then they're going to be droughty, you know. So it's sort of like robbing Peter to pay Paul, and somebody always loses. And these weather modification companies are online and they're bragging, we can, you know, help you, and we can do this and we can do that. However, you got to wonder why they're not helping California. So the United States military, it spends more on the military than any other country, and they're really world dominance. I mean, our military is really the amount of money that is spent, and I think the word billion is stuck out there so people get used to hearing $1 billion, but $700 billion, it just is. And it's not going to our troops. Our troops are on food stamps, you know, they're not taking care of the veterans, and they're giving excess equipment away to arm our police forces. So, and it seems to be happening, you know, a lot that they're doing this. And they just signed a $52 billion contract with Boeing for more airplanes. There is a document called Weather as a Force Multiplier. It's owning the weather by 2025. And in this document, on some of the timeline here, it calls for using chemicals in the atmosphere by civilian and military aviation. So that they had started, these persistent contrails started happening in the early 90s, but then started more and more and more and more. And by the year 2000, they were really starting to go pretty crazy. And I can't believe that we've never noticed it here. Like it just kind of surprises me but it's exponential now, and they are increasing everywhere, and it's happening everywhere. Like you can't get away from it. And the 2004 creating smart clouds, the only thing that I could find about smart clouds is that, and it's in this document, is basically they're spraying out of these, along with everything else that they're spraying out into the atmosphere, they're spraying out microchips that they can communicate with, that can move these clouds and do with them what they want them to do. In the carbon black dust, the only thing I could find on it was that it absorbs heat, and I wish that I could figure that out, but I couldn't find anything else on it. So, so the next, this is not a very fun part of this, but this is just, I have nothing against our troops at all, and the saying support our troops. How can you argue with support our troops? Because it's our brothers and husbands and all of that. But they have done some pretty horrible things, or made to do some pretty horrible things. And they came out with a law, this law, Public Law 105-85, which basically gives the military and the government permission to do chemical and biological warfare on civilians, and they do, and they have consistently, and not in good ways at all. It's been pretty, so when people think, why would they do these crazy things? It's not the way that we normally think. We don't think like that. We don't think power control, and we're just normal people trying to live our lives, and you think, why would somebody do that? Why? It's just, it's beyond me. I can't, I can't kind of grasp onto it either. And, but they have. And the other thing that they've done from planes, like they've dropped infected mosquitoes with yellow fever over Florida. And then they've dropped fleas with bubonic plague, in Arizona. And then they've gone out in California with this gelatinous rain. And the other thing that's been dropped down, which sounds completely crazy, but thank goodness my neighbors, I dragged them over to see it, is it's polymer fibers. And if anybody's ever seen it, I don't know, but it looks like spider webs, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of spider webs, only they're not sticky like a spider web. They are kind of like really fine fishing line, and they, like hundreds of them, thousands of them will drop out of the sky in one area, and then they lay all over the grass, and they lay in the bushes, and they do, and so of course we didn't touch them, and they do dissipate after a while, but in what their purpose is, whatever it is, I have no idea, but it definitely creeped me out because I had seen videos of it, but it actually happened in my yard, and so that was really bizarre, which is why I dragged my neighbors over to go, look at this. So, so they do. And a plane had gone over, and so that's the only place it could have come from. This is how the officials feel about our soldiers. This is totally how they feel about them. They are just pawns. They do not care about our troops at all. And with 22 veterans killing themselves every single day, they have to be in so much torment to think, either forced into things that you can't even imagine. And then Henry Kissinger won a Nobel Peace Prize, and so did Hitler. He, and I looked this up because I couldn't believe it. He was Man of the Year in 1938, Man of the Year by Time magazine, and then he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1939, but then he started World War II, so he didn't get it. But it just goes to show how you just think that like what's going on, and then all of a sudden it's like, what? So, HARP. This is up in Kokona, Alaska, and this is a military application. Also, universities are big into this, and to say that I understand it, I don't really understand it, and I have watched a lot about it and need to know more about it, but basically it's an ionosphere heater, and it's capable of 1 billion watts of energy, and what they can do with this is they started out by beaming frequencies down into the ground to find oil or gas and things like that. And then they realized that they could actually cause earthquakes. You know, they could put enough power behind those frequencies to cause earthquakes, or and also in the air. So what they've been doing is they have been blasting through the atmosphere. They combine 180 antennas, they make one big beam, and they go all the way through the ozone and all the other layers and go up to the ionosphere, and they lift a portion of it. They can just lift the whole thing, and they can keep it suspended for a certain amount of time. And what that does is it moves the jet stream. It can create the jet stream to move in different ways. So there's an excellent documentary called Holes in Heaven, and it shows the government side of it, and it shows you know, people that are specialists in these frequencies being very, very concerned about it. And the European Council, actually, when this was made, this HARP facility was made, they came forward and said, this is definitely a weapon and we don't like it. And but it's able to steer hurricanes and hailstorms, and it's able to, with these frequencies and working with the trails, you know, the chemtrails, or if you want to call them that, then it's able to use all the metals, and the barium heats up very well, which is another ingredient that's in them. So they're able to maneuver the weather with what they're spraying out of these planes. These are all HARP facilities all over the world. And the one in Alaska happens to be, for whatever reason, where it's located, you know, where the energies all lie, it's the most powerful. We also have these NEXRAD facilities, and they're Doppler radar, they're weather stations, and they're supposed to be receiving information. There's 160 of them around here throughout the United States. What we have seen on satellite radars is that they are emitting energy, not receiving it, they're emitting it. And this is what they look like. And here is a cloud, not a cloud, but behind it. And this is the kind of stuff that it can do, because these frequencies pulse. And that's what these, they're supposed to be receiving, but they're also owned by the Department of Defense as well as weather services. So, and this is the SBX radar. These float around in the ocean, and these are mainly for defense for incoming attacks that come in. If there's a electromagnetic pulse attack, all our grid systems could go down. And if that happens, then the nuclear facilities and stuff are not able to keep themselves cooled, you know. So and it's also to keep incoming missiles. However it does it, I don't know. But there are many of these, but they are also able to move these aerosols, and this is a satellite picture of them off the ocean. And this is what they do. They pulse it, and it makes these kind of formations. So these are some of the clouds and from NEXRAD and HARP that you might have seen, might not have seen, but this is the type of stuff it does. It can move like holes, it can make lines, but it pulses and makes these unnatural formations. And that doesn't, I mean, of course, if you talk to a weather person or whatever, they've had to come up with excuses for all of this. You know, they're trying to say that this is whatever it is, but I've seen it so many times over my house where the whole sky is just filled with aerosols, and you'll see them start to get pulsed, and then they turn into different cloud shapes. So they're definitely being manipulated into formations of some sort. So that's a good example there of what's there. And it certainly doesn't look natural to me. And this is a satellite over Germany, actually, and I would not even want to be there. I can't imagine the amount of frequency that's going on there to create that kind of pulsing. So Monsanto, I have to bring them into this because they are a big part of this. And if a lot of you, if you're not familiar with them, they are a multinational agrochemical, agricultural biotechnology corporation. And they make our food. That they're horrible. They're a horrible corporation. And they are taking advantage of this weather modification in a big way. So Bill Gates, he has 500 shares in Monsanto, and he promotes geoengineering. And geoengineering causes these droughts and floods. And then the farmers can't grow organically. So they struggle through this. So what does Monsanto do? They make aluminum resistant seeds. They make UV resistant seeds. They make drought and you know, you name it, whatever they're creating, they're making seeds for it, so that farmers will be forced to purchase their seeds if they're not able to grow. And again, Monsanto owning a weather modification or a weather company called Climate Corp that's able to predict weather and stuff like that, they're making a fortune on the market from failed crops even. So it's, it behooves them to make it. This is the aluminum resistant patent, just to. They also are the makers of Agent Orange, and these boys didn't live to be 18. And this is third generation Agent Orange, and Agent Orange was sprayed in Vietnam, and they're bringing it back. They just, the USDA just passed allowing them to use the active ingredient of Agent Orange mixed with Roundup to spray the super weeds that they created from using Roundup. So it just blows me away to see how many thousands, hundreds and thousands of people have died from this, and it's being allowed back into our food system. And the thing about this Agent Orange is it's able to form a cloud and move up and go down 100 miles down the road and land somewhere else. And so this could be our children, this could be anybody's child. And so they're horrific, you know. I think it's, I can't believe the USDA just passed. It just blows me away. So back to a little bit of solar radiation management. This is this winter, and this is one of the forms that they use. I had showed you flying around the mountains. This is right down in Main Street here. And what they would do is they fly low on the horizon. They let the trails spread out, and then they fly again, and then let the trail spread out, and they continue to do that all day long until it's whited out. And so every bluebird day we had, it would turn into this whited out mess. This is another way that it's done. These clouds are not floating in from the west. You know, they used to float in and you could say, oh, the sun's gonna get covered, I'm gonna get shade, whatever. These things are just appearing. They just seep down through, and then all of a sudden they start filling in, but they're not floating in. It's just how they behave is very, very different. And then they turn into this sort of thing. So, oops, sorry, I went a little fast. This is just like, it looks like what would be a contrail if you think it was. I happened to catch it going by. So even these short ones turn into this. They had gone by my house and I couldn't catch the camera quick enough. It went from this, and it keeps spreading into this, and then into this, to this. And that all happened within an hour. It's like, that is not a natural weather. That's not what, it's just nuts. So this solar radiation management, lots of times you can see these clouds it just doesn't look natural, but it's always blocking out the sun in a lot of ways all the time. And we haven't figured out what that is, whether it's a shadow of something up above it or how that happens, I don't know. But again, always showing them being out. These are just some of the chemicals that are listed. It's just endless of what they have found in air, soil, and rain, and had these all tested through professional labs and that sort of thing. And that's enough right there. And if people aren't even upset about these chemicals, the fact that planes all have leaded gas still and that they're just flying them around all day long, blocking out the sun, that's even worse. And I wanted to show this just because lots of times when the sun hits these clouds, they turn into, everybody goes, oh, pretty rainbow, or they think it's a sundog, which would be wonderful if it was. But these are always pretty much pink and green. And here you can see a trail going through. This is when the sun has so much aerosols in front of it, it just makes this halo type thing. And these colors are all lit up aerosols. So if it was a true cloud, it would be nice if it felt like a true, it looked like a true cloud, but that's not a cloud. And the way that they form, it's disheartening to see that they turn these colors. So health effects are endless, but just to list a few, but the biggest is 1 in 3 people die with Alzheimer's, not from it, but with it. So that's alarming on its own. And if they say don't eat out of a tin can, and yet they're spraying aluminum throughout our atmosphere, that just adds to, it just adds to the epidemic. And they don't talk about it being an epidemic, but, and I just read that they are predicting that 1 out of 2 kids by 2040 will have autism. 1 out of 2, that's an epidemic, and that is wrong, and that is definitely created. It's not a natural thing. Lung cancer, because these nano-sized particulates can be inhaled and also absorbed through your skin. People have respiratory problems, COPD, and all of that type of things. It's just off the charts, and kids are using inhalers. And I checked with, a few of us have checked in emergency rooms and stuff on heavy spray days, and they get more people in with breathing related issues. Not knowing why, but they are there. And barium sulfates decrease potassium, which can cause heart attacks and chest pains and inflammation in your joints. And these frequencies that are put out from HAARP, from NextRad, from all of those, even cell phone towers, they are the exact same frequency as our brains and our hearts. And so they're capable of causing emotions. And they used to use these as biochemical warfare on people and torment people pretty much with this type of frequency. So these are new clouds since 2004. So when you start making the weather and doing that sort of thing, you have to come up with new names, I guess. And they did. So I checked into this because you think, how do they explain this away? How do they call these street clouds, you know, these rows of clouds. And they have pretty much excuses for everything, but these are just some of them here. The wave. I'd be running the other way. Okay, so to make that point driven home, the US Post Office came up with these new clouds in stamps to explain that. So, and you can, it's just ridiculous. It's so blatant that they would do something like this. My favorite is Stratus opacus because it's all whited out. And but as you can see, there's the cumulus, there's tons and tons and tons of cumulus clouds. Like, and that's something new to me here. Like I know we have cumulus clouds, but to see so many of them all the time is pretty crazy. So that was part of the messaging. Kids videos, the animated cartoons, they're starting to put all kinds of crazy spraying planes in these cartoons. What purpose could there possibly be to put those in there? Over the hedge, they're playing tic-tac-toe and putting the street clouds in the back, but every single frame has a trail in it. It's like, why would they put that there if they didn't want to make it normal? And so, also in this here, this is what, I don't know what that is. Through clear skies, what is that? You know, what are they trying to prove? Car commercials now, almost all of them. There's a lot of car commercials that have these in there. And there have been photographers that talk about how they would completely erase this out of any other pictures if this happened normally. So they are purposely putting these in here to make them normal. Saks Fifth Ave, why would they do that? And this, okay, that makes a little, because it's Aero Systems, you know, but to have a big billboard with these showing them off is crazy. So I'll let you read this question here. So the reason that I put that there is because people say, well, don't the weather people know about this? And I believe some do, some don't, because I have contacted some and they seem sincerely not aware of it. But I would love to talk to the Mount Washington Observatory. I would love to see where they're at and what they're being taught and how they are thinking that these things are normal. But when they blatantly put them in the backdrop of their newscast, they're doing it on purpose. You know, there's no reason not to. And the reason that I wrote what I wrote over here is that when you hear them explaining about these crazy clouds, every time it's ice crystals. That's the answer, you know, that they come up with for whatever answer they want to do. And so many, and even here locally, a couple people have heard the local 8 newscasters say cloudy with a chance of contrails. Why would you say that? Why, you know? And so, yes, it is cloudy with those contrails. But so to trust the professionals, I think it's better to trust your own instincts and go with what you just think, does that look normal? Or most people might even look at that and not even see them, but all of a sudden it's in their brain that that's what's happening. This is a quote from an Army pilot, military pilot, who absolutely says chemtrails are real. She is a whistleblower, absolutely, you know, and she said that it's not for their stated reasons, which I believe is true. Whistleblowers, there are many, many whistleblowers on this situation. Kristen Megan was an Air Force environmental specialist. When she went to her superiors on this, they threatened her to put her in a mental institution. So she had an 8-year-old daughter. She chose to not fight it. She went to another base and found the exact same thing, all the ingredients, everything being loaded onto the planes. And when she came out, she screamed from every corner, you know, to tell people. And then there are many, many, many. I won't, you know, go through all of them, but they're professionals and they have come forward. But many of them get threatened, or they get called conspiracy theorists, or they get called crazy, or, you know, so it's been a really hard thing to bring people forward. And for some reason, pilots, I don't understand it. Some pilots have come forward, you know, but I don't get the pilot thing, and because they're up there flying around in that. And the one thing I did want to mention is when these planes are flying heavily down here, none of them are on radar. All the European flights are flying more northerly on the days that it's heavy down here. They fly a more northern route. They know what's going on. And can it be because a pilot can make $12,000 a month, you know, on retirement? Is it because, you know, they just, I don't know what it is, you know, that they won't, the majority of them won't even say, you're right, you know, contrails can't form here. This I had to put in because this really bothers me. These pink clouds out of nowhere. It's not, some of them are at sunset. This is at 8 o'clock in the morning, and everywhere I turn are pink clouds. And this happens a lot. And they turn black, every single one of them. And it's completely unnatural. Or you'll see large clouds with just lit up pink sections, and then they turn black. And I don't know what that's all about, but I just find it weird. And sunsets, you know, we have these, on heavy spray days, we get these sunsets that are crazy, kind of beautiful, right? Sunsets in the east, someone just said, yeah, and on the opposite side, you know, they're everywhere, and it's not a reflection from the sun. It's not, you know, they say it's refracting light and this and that, and it's not. It's just like, these clouds just turn into, you can see a trail going through there, but just see how it just goes from pink to black to this, and it's just, that just is not normal, and I don't know what it is, but sunsets definitely are not nearly as beautiful as they used to be, and it's a little disheartening. But yeah, so the reason that this is the sort of the end, and then I have some just photos for you to look at. But so for me, the reason that I wanted to do this is to create awareness, to get rid of the stigma that it's a crazy conspiracy theory. These are all factual things that people can check on, and to have an awareness in the community that if they're going to be spraying these chemicals down on us, that we have a way to grow our food, that we can figure out or work with environmental groups and find out what's falling down and what damage it's actually doing. They're not coming for, I believe, my belief in what has happened is that they've been playing around with the atmosphere for way too long, and they have done damage, and that they need to do this in order to cover their butts. That's my thought. And because now they're talking about bringing it out. Do I believe in climate change? Yes, I believe that the climate is definitely heating up. There's no doubt about it. I believe we have done horrible, horrible damage ourselves, but these geoengineering programs are making it way worse to change the atmosphere like this. And so what I believe is going to happen is they're finally going to come out of the woods and say, we're going to save the world with geoengineering. And I think that we just need to be smarter than they are, or at least more aware. So that was that. So I'm just going to show some photos, and then we'll take some questions, if that's okay. Thank you. Okay.